You know what's funny? My dad said, loud enough for the couple at the next table to hear. My daughter spends her days sniffing around kitchens with a clipboard like she's some kind of hero. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Heat crawled up my neck. The tablecloth felt too white, too crisp, like it was highlighting every second of my humiliation. Across from me, my brother Logan leaned back in his chair and laughed. Not the warm kind. The kind that makes you feel small. Come on, he said, nodding toward me like I was part of the decor. Tell them what you do. Tell them how you check fridge temperatures and boss people around for a living. Kept my face still. Kept my hands steady. I forced my lips into a polite curve like I was watching strangers insult someone else. My dad lifted his glass, pretending to toast. To Megan. The family's health inspector. A few heads turned. I felt it. That curious flick of attention, the silent judgment of strangers trying to decide if I deserved the disrespect. My father's eyes glittered with satisfaction, like he'd landed a punch. Logan smirked, enjoying the echo of it. I swallowed the burn in my throat and set my fork down gently, careful not to make a sound. Because if I gave them emotion they would treat it like proof. And that was when I saw movement near the front of the dining room. A man in a dark suit stepped away from the host's stand and started walking straight toward our table, his gaze locked on me like he knew me. My name is Megan Hartley. I am 30 years old. I work for the county as a food safety specialist. Most people call it health inspector because it's easier. What my dad calls it depends on how badly he needs to feel bigger than me. The man walking toward us was Elias Rowe, the owner of Rowan House, one of the hardest reservations in the city. I knew him because 3 months ago his restaurant had a real problem. A compressor failure had pushed their walk-in cooler above safe temp overnight. Could have gotten people sick. Could have shut them down. It could have ruined the reputation he'd built for 15 years. I had worked with his staff for 2 straight days, not to punish them but to fix it. I had helped them document everything, discard what needed discarding and rebuild their safety plan so the next inspection wouldn't be a disaster. Elias stopped beside my chair and smiled like he was genuinely happy to see me. Megan, he said warmly. I hoped it was you. My dad's mouth opened slightly, then shut again. Logan's smirk slipped. Elias looked at the rest of the table like he was taking inventory, then focused back on me. I want to thank you, he said, voice clear and calm. You saved my team from a mistake that could have cost them their jobs and could have cost me my restaurant. I felt my father stiffen beside his steak knife. Elias continued, not dramatic, just sincere. People think your job is about power. It isn't. You showed my staff respect. You helped us get it right. I've never forgotten that. Then he did something that made the table go quiet in a different way. He turned slightly and motioned to a waiter. Please bring Megan the chef's tasting dessert, he said. And put it on my tab. The waiter nodded immediately like this was not a question. My father stared at Elias as if the air had changed density. Logan blinked, suddenly unsure where to put his eyes. Elias gave me a small nod, almost private. You deserve to be treated well in this room, he said. Enjoy your evening. And then he walked away, leaving my dad holding his glass midair like he'd forgotten what it was for. For a moment I could hear my own pulse louder than the soft music. But before I continue with what happened next, if you are enjoying this story, please like and subscribe. My dad recovered first. He always did. His pride had 9 lives. He forced a laugh that sounded like it scraped on the way out. Well, he said too casually, looks like the restaurant owner knows you. Logan leaned in, voice lower but still sharp. Guess playing hall monitor finally paid off. I looked at them, really looked. My father's tight jaw. My brother's smugness trying to return to its usual place. I waited. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make them uncomfortable. Then I smiled. Not sweet. Not apologetic. Controlled. It's interesting, I said softly, how you only respect my work when a rich stranger confirms it for you. My dad's eyes flashed. Don't start. Logan scoffed. Here we go. I reached for my water, took a slow sip and set it down like I had all the time in the world. I did not yell. I did not cry. I did not beg to be treated kindly at my own family table. I had done that for years and it never worked. My mind drifted back, uninvited, to the pattern that brought us here. Dad cheering for Logan's high school touchdowns even when Logan rode the bench. Dad calling my scholarship nice, like it was a coupon. Dad telling relatives I worked for the county, with a little laugh as if my career was a cute hobby. The favoritism was never subtle. It was just normalized. And sitting there in a restaurant where the owner had just honored me, I felt something click into place. My dessert hadn't arrived yet. But the bitterness already had. The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. Logan kept checking his phone. Dad kept trying to make jokes that fell flat. I ate my dessert slowly, savoring every bite because it tasted like validation. When we finally left, Dad didn't offer to walk me to my car like he used to. Logan didn't say goodbye. I drove home alone, but for the first time in years I didn't feel lonely. The next morning I stood in a stainless steel prep area behind a small diner on the edge of Raleigh, watching steam rise from a dish sink while the manager wrung her hands. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I swear we've been trying." I believed her. Her kitchen was clean. Her temps were logged. Her staff looked tired, not careless. I worked the way I always did, calm, focused, fair. I explained what needed to be corrected. I wrote a plan. I showed her how to fix the one violation that could become a real issue if it lingered. When I stepped back outside, the air felt sharper. Fall had crept into the morning, cool enough to sting. My phone vibrated. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered because part of me still hoped he could be a different man. "Megan," he said, already annoyed. "What was that last night?" "What part?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "The part where you mocked me at dinner, or the part where the owner thanked me for doing my job well?" "You embarrassed your brother," Dad snapped. I almost laughed. Logan had embarrassed himself. But my father could not say that out loud. "I didn't say anything cruel," I replied. "I said the truth." Dad exhaled hard. "You always do this. You always twist things into an insult." "No," I said quietly. "I just stopped swallowing them." There was a pause. I could hear him shifting, recalculating, searching for the lever that usually moved me. "Listen," he said, changing tone. "I've got something big coming up. A job. It could be a real turning point for the family." I stared at the parking lot, the faded lines, the dented pickup trucks, the normal world outside my family drama. "What kind of job?" I asked. And the way he answered made my stomach tighten. "A restaurant expansion," he said. "High-end. Private dining build-out. We're meeting the owner soon." My pulse quickened. "Which restaurant?" Dad laughed, pleased with himself. "Can't say yet. But it's going to change everything for us." Like I was still part of his plans. Like I hadn't spent years watching him treat my career like a joke while expecting me to celebrate his. "That's great, Dad," I said, voice flat. He missed the sarcasm entirely. "I'll keep you posted. Maybe this will finally prove to you that real work pays off." I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. That afternoon I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and my stomach sour. My dad ran a small renovation business. He was good with his hands, I'll give him that. But he was reckless with everything else, especially money. And I knew what his turning point usually meant. It meant he needed someone else to catch him when he jumped. I logged into my bank account not because I wanted to snoop, but because my body had learned to anticipate family emergencies the way people anticipate storms. My pulse slowed as soon as I saw it. A monthly charge I recognized. A policy payment. Difference. Not mine. Hartley Renovations. My finger hovered over the transaction like it might bite me. I remembered the night 6 months ago when Dad showed up at my apartment with his best helpless face. "Just for a month," he'd said. "Just until the next check clears. I don't want Logan stressed." And I had agreed because my dad had trained me to confuse enabling with love. Only it hadn't been 1 month. It had been 6. I clicked deeper, scrolling. More charges. Small ones. Reimbursement transfers that never quite happened. I sat back in my chair, feeling that familiar internal tug of war. The old Megan wanted to call him, to explain calmly, to negotiate. The new Megan, the one who'd watched a restaurant owner walk up to her like she mattered, did something else. I opened a notepad and started writing down dates, amounts, and account numbers. Because if my family wanted to treat me like a joke, they were about to learn what happens when the joke stops paying the bills. My hands shook slightly as I wrote, but not from fear. From clarity. The next day I took my lunch break in my car and called my bank. I did not raise my voice. I did not dramatize. I asked for facts. I asked how to revoke automatic payments. I asked how to create a new account and move my direct deposit. I asked how to add extra protection to prevent anyone from using my information without consent. The banker's tone shifted halfway through the call. Not pity. Recognition. Like she'd heard this story before. When the call ended, I sat in silence for a minute, palms pressed lightly to the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with a text from Logan. You really loved that moment last night, huh? Thought you were somebody because some old guy gave you dessert. I stared at the message until it stopped looking like words and started looking like what it actually was. A warning. Stay small. Stay quiet. Stay useful. I saved the text. Then I made one more call. Not to my dad. To a lawyer. The attorney's office smelled like paper and coffee. The waiting room had bland art and a bowl of mints nobody trusted. Her name was Marissa Keene, and she looked like the kind of woman who didn't tolerate nonsense even on a good day. I slid my printed transactions across her desk. She read them silently, lips pressed together. Then she looked up. You authorized these payments? For 1 month, I said. Verbal agreement. Nothing in writing. Marissa nodded once like she'd already decided something. Here's what we can do, she said. First we stop everything. Then we document. If they try to claim entitlement, we respond through paper, not emotion. I felt my shoulders loosen just hearing someone talk about my family like a problem that had a solution. Marissa tapped the page. And Megan, I'm going to say this plainly. If your father used your information beyond your consent, you may have liability risk if you don't correct it. That line landed heavy. Liability. Risk. Not feelings. Not guilt. Reality. I nodded slowly. Then we correct it. Marissa's expression sharpened. Good. Because once you start holding boundaries, people who benefit from your lack of them will get loud. As I left her office, my phone rang. Dead. And this time I didn't answer. I went to my parents' house on Saturday morning because I wanted one thing. A clean end. My father opened the door with a smile that was too bright to be sincere. My mother hovered behind him, eyes already tense like she could smell conflict. Logan was in the living room, feet on the coffee table like he owned the place. Dad gestured me inside. We were just talking about you. I'm sure you were, I said calm. I held out an envelope. This is a written notice. Effective immediately, I'm revoking authorization for any payments or accounts connected to me. No more charges. No more temporary help. Dad's smile faltered. What is this? Some kind of threat. It's paperwork, I said. The thing you told me was boring. Logan snorted. Oh my God. Are you serious? I met his eyes. Completely. My mother's voice got sharp. After everything we've done for you, you're going to do this to your father? I didn't flinch. This isn't something I'm doing to him. It's something I'm stopping. Dad's jaw worked like he was chewing rage. You're going to ruin us over a few payments? A few payments that weren't yours to take, I replied. Logan stood up, slower than necessary. You think you're tough now? I looked at him, then at my father. And I realized something that made me feel weirdly calm. They had never respected me. They had only relied on me. I'll be expecting confirmation in writing, I said. Any communication can go through my attorney. Dad's face darkened. You're not family if you do this. I paused at the door and turned back. Then you should have treated me like family before I learned how to live without you. I walked to my car and my phone buzzed the second I sat down. A calendar reminder I didn't remember setting. Meeting at Rowan House. Owner. Monday at 10 a.m. Rowan House was quiet in the morning, the dining room dim, the smell of fresh baked bread lingering like something expensive and comforting. Elias met me near the bar, sleeves rolled slightly, looking less like an owner and more like a man who actually worked for what he had. I'm glad you came, he said. I'm still not sure why you asked me, I admitted. I looked through the peephole. My father stood in the hallway, face red, jaw tight. Logan was behind him, eyes darting like a trapped animal. Elias gestured toward a small table. Because I'm opening 2 more locations. And every time I hire someone to handle compliance, they either don't understand the rules or they don't understand people. He leaned forward slightly. You understand both. I felt a flicker of pride, quick and dangerous. Then Elias added, your father mentioned he might be bidding on a build-out for my private dining expansion. My stomach tightened. Elias watched my face carefully. I'm not asking you to say anything improper. I'm asking as a business owner. Is he the kind of person who respects systems? I inhaled slowly. I chose my words like they were fragile glass. I can't comment on my father's work, I said. But I can tell you this. Respect is not his strong suit. Elias nodded once like that was enough. Then he slid a folder across the table. A consulting agreement. Real numbers. Real respect. I want you, he said simply. Not because you're connected. Because you're good. I stared at the folder. My family had spent years trying to convince me my career was small. And here was a stranger offering me a bigger world because he saw my value clearly. I signed. And as I capped the pen, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Voicemail. I played it. My dad's voice, strained and furious. What did you say to Elias Rowe? I did not call my dad back. I forwarded the voicemail to Marissa. Then I went to work because the easiest way to stay sane in family chaos is to keep your feet planted in your own life. My supervisor pulled me aside that afternoon, her expression careful. Megan, she said, we received a complaint. My chest tightened but my face stayed neutral. A complaint about what? She hesitated. About you. Alleging you've been using your position to intimidate restaurant owners connected to your family. My stomach dropped, not because I believed it would stick but because I knew exactly who had said it. That. When mockery didn't keep me small, he went for my livelihood. I breathed in slowly, counting in my head. 1, 2, 3. What's the process? I asked calmly. Her eyes softened a fraction. We have to review. Standard procedure. You'll submit a statement. I nodded once. I can do that. As I walked back to my desk, I felt something burn behind my ribs. Not fear. Clarity. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a folder open. Inside were printed emails, texts, transaction statements, and the signed consulting agreement with Elias. Marissa sat across from me, leaning in. This complaint is retaliation, she said. We respond with facts. I handed her my inspection logs, my schedule, the case notes proving I had not inspected any business connected to my father in over a year. Marissa nodded. Good. Clean. Then she slid another page toward me. A document I had never seen before. It was from the Secretary of State's Business Registry. Hartley Renovations LLC. And under listed members there was a name. Megan Hartley. My stomach lurched. I never signed this, I whispered. Marissa's eyes went cold. Then someone signed for you. I stared at the page like it was a living thing. My family wasn't just mocking me. They were using me. In ways that could ruin my life if I didn't act fast. Marissa tapped the paper once. We file an affidavit. We notify the state. And Megan, we may need to involve law enforcement. I thought about my dad's toast at dinner. The way Logan laughed. The way they treated me like I was harmless. I looked up at Marissa and nodded. Do it. The detective assigned to my case had a calm voice and tired eyes. His name was Detective Rains. He listened while I explained the charges, the payments, the forged member listing. He asked for documents. I gave him everything. When I finished, he sat back slightly and said, You're telling me your father used your identity to register you as part of his company without your knowledge? Yes, I said. And he's been letting my bank account cover expenses. Detective Rains nodded slowly. That isn't family drama. That's fraud. The word hit differently when it came from someone official. Fraud. Not misunderstanding. Not generosity. Not jealousy. Fraud. He slid a form toward me. If you sign this statement, we can request records. Bank, registration, possibly lender information. My pen hovered. A part of me still wanted to believe my father would never cross that line. But the line was already behind us. I signed. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed with a new text from my mother. If you don't stop this, your father's business will be ruined and it will be your fault. I stared at the screen, then typed back only one sentence. He chose this. Then I blocked her. 2 days later, my supervisor called me into her office. The internal review was complete. She looked at me for a long moment, then slid a paper across the desk. Complaint unsubstantiated, she said. And Megan, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice steady. Thank you for handling it fairly. She nodded, then added quietly, You've been recommended for a senior role. If you want it. The irony almost made me dizzy. My father tried to damage my career. And the attempt highlighted how clean my record actually was. I walked out of that office feeling something new. Not just relief. My phone buzzed. This time it was Elias. He sent a short message. Your dad showed up here this morning. He demanded the expansion contract. He made a scene. I'm done with him. I stared at the text. My father's arrogance wasn't just hurting me now. It was detonating his own life in real time. Detective Rains called the next week. We pulled the registration forms, he said. The signature doesn't match yours. We also pulled loan records linked to your father's company. My stomach clenched. What loan records? A business line increase, he said. Your name was used as a supporting guarantor on the paperwork. That's why you were listed as a member. It made the company look stronger. I sat down hard on the edge of my couch. I never agreed to any of that. I know, he said. We also obtained the surveillance footage from the bank branch where the paperwork was filed. Your father was there. Your brother was with him. Logan too. I closed my eyes, feeling a slow burn crawl up my spine. My brother didn't just join in the mocking. He joined in the theft. Detective Rains continued. We're going to request an arrest warrant for your father based on the evidence. Your brother may be charged as well depending on what the prosecutor decides. My mouth went dry. What happens next? You may be subpoenaed, he said. And you should not contact them. I won't, I said, voice steady. They made their choice. When the call ended, I sat in silence for a long time, staring at nothing. Then my doorbell rang. 3 slow presses. Like someone was trying to remind me who they thought they were. I didn't open the door. Kept the chain on. I cracked the door just enough to speak. What do you want? I asked. Dad's voice was low and furious. You think you're smart, don't you? You think you can destroy your own family and still sleep at night. I let the words roll off me like rain. You destroyed this, I said calmly. I just stopped lying about it. Logan stepped forward, eyes glossy. Meg, please. It got out of hand. I stared at him. At the brother who used to ask me for rides when his truck died. At the brother who laughed at my career like it was a joke. What exactly got out of hand? I asked. The part where you mocked me at dinner or the part where you helped Dad use my name on loans? Dad's face flickered. A brief flash of panic. He hadn't expected me to know that much. None of that matters, he snapped. You're my daughter. You owe me. I felt my expression go still. No, I said softly. I don't. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Marissa. Warrant approved. Do not engage. I looked at my father one last time through the crack in the door. You should leave, I said. Before this gets worse for you. Dad sneered. You can't scare me. I didn't respond. I just closed the door. The arrest happened without drama. That was the part that shocked me. No cinematic sirens in my driveway. No shouting on my doorstep. Detective Rains called to let me know Dad had been taken into custody during a traffic stop. Logan wasn't arrested that day, but he was served with notice to appear. My mother's last attempt came through an email she sent from a new address. Your father is sick with worry. He can't eat. You're killing him. I stared at the screen, feeling nothing but tired. Then I forwarded it to Marissa and deleted it. 2 days later, Elias called. I don't know what's going on with your family, he said gently, but I want you to know something. I checked your father's licensing after he made that scene here. My stomach tightened. And? He has open complaints, Elias said. Multiple. He's been skating by on charm and intimidation. I hired someone else for the expansion. I exhaled slowly. Dad's turning point job. Gone. Not because I sabotaged him. Because he couldn't control his mouth long enough to secure it. And I knew my father well enough to understand what he would do next. He would blame me anyway. The court date for the fraud charges was set for the following month. Marissa told me I didn't have to attend, but I went. Not for revenge. For closure. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and stale air. My hands were steady in my lap, but my stomach felt tight. Dad sat at the defense table, shoulders stiff, eyes fixed forward like he could glare the world into apologizing. Logan sat behind him, looking pale and younger than I'd ever seen him. When Dad spotted me, his eyes narrowed. He leaned toward his attorney, whispered something, then looked straight at me like he wanted to make me flinch. I didn't. The prosecutor spoke calmly, presenting documents, signatures, records, bank footage. Dad's attorney tried to argue it was family assistance and miscommunication. The judge's face stayed flat. Then the judge asked one question that sliced through everything. Did your daughter give consent? Dad's jaw clenched. His attorney hesitated. The truth sat in the room like a weight. And in that moment I felt something in me loosen like a knot finally giving up. I thought that was the end. I thought the legal system would do what it does and I could quietly keep rebuilding my life. Then I got a letter in the mail from a leasing company. Final notice. Commercial van lease. Delinquent. Guarantor responsible. My name. My hands went cold. I called the number immediately, heart pounding. The representative's voice was professional, uninterested in my panic. You're listed as a guarantor, she said. If payment isn't made, we proceed with collections. I never signed that lease, I said, forcing calm. I need you to email me the paperwork. She did. I opened the attachment and stared at the signature. My name. In messy cursive that wasn't mine. I forwarded it to Marissa with one line. He did it again. Marissa called within minutes. Megan, she said, voice sharp, we file a fraud affidavit today. And in the background I heard someone else speaking. Not her. A man's voice. Detective Rains. They've escalated, he said. So do we. The next week was a blur of forms, calls and meetings. I kept showing up to work. I kept doing my job. Kept my face calm. Inside I felt like a wire pulled tight. Marissa filed the fraud affidavit. Detective Rains added the lease forgery to the case. The leasing company froze collections pending investigation. Then Logan called from an unknown number. I answered only because I wanted one thing. Truth. His voice was shaky. I didn't know Dad was going to do the van thing. You were there when he used my name before, I said quietly. I know, Logan whispered. I know. I thought it would help. I thought it was temporary. I held the phone away from my ear for a second, breathing through the hot sting behind my eyes. Logan, I said, voice steady again, temporary theft is still theft. He made a small sound like he was swallowing something sharp. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. Dad told me if I didn't back him, he'd tell everyone I'm the one who messed up the books. He said he'd ruin me. My chest tightened. Because that meant Logan wasn't just complicit. He was scared. And scared people do unpredictable things. 2 days later, Elias texted me again. This time it was a photo. My father standing outside Rowan House, face tight with rage, pointing at the front windows like the building had personally betrayed him. The message beneath it was simple. Security had to remove him. Staff is shaken. I'm filing for a no trespass order. My stomach turned. Dad was unraveling publicly now. Marissa called right after. The prosecutor wants to offer a deal, she said. But there's a condition. Your father has to admit fault. He has to pay restitution. He has to agree to no contact. I felt my breath catch. No contact. Not a request. A legal wall. Marissa's voice softened slightly. Megan, this is the cleanest way to protect yourself. I looked around my apartment at the quiet I'd built, at the life that finally felt like it belonged to me. Do it, I said. And then my phone buzzed again. A notification from my county HR portal. Meeting request. Mandatory. Subject line. Employment update. I sat in the HR office with my hands folded in my lap, heart thudding hard enough to feel in my teeth. My supervisor was there. Chair was there. The county attorney was there. The attorney spoke first. Megan, we need to inform you of something. Your father contacted the county again. He made allegations that you accepted favors from restaurant owners in exchange for leniency. My stomach went cold. Then my supervisor leaned forward, eyes steady. And we also need to inform you that we investigated, she said. Thoroughly. The county attorney slid a paper toward me. Cleared. No misconduct. No wrongdoing. And then in the same breath the county attorney said, however, your father's repeated false reports have been documented. He may be charged with harassment if he continues. My throat tightened, not with fear, but with something that felt like vindication. My supervisor's expression softened. Megan, I know this has been personal. I'm sorry. And I want you to know we value you. She paused, then added, We're promoting you. Senior specialist role. Effective immediately. I blinked, stunned. Dad tried to burn my career down. And instead I rose. When I walked out of HR, my phone buzzed. Marissa. They accepted the deal, she said. Your father will be ordered to pay restitution and there will be a no-contact order. I leaned against the hallway wall, closing my eyes. And for the first time in months I felt my body loosen. Then the final twist arrived. Detective Rains texted me a single sentence. Logan is cooperating. Your father is blaming him. Be prepared. The final hearing felt less like drama and more like consequence. Dad stood in front of the judge, eyes still stubborn, still angry, still convinced the world owed him softness. Logan stood beside his public defender, face drawn tight. When the judge asked Dad if he understood the terms, he tried one last time. This is ridiculous, Dad said. She's my daughter. Families handle this inside the home. The judge stared at him, unimpressed. No, she said plainly. Families do not handle fraud by forcing the victim to pay for it. Dad's face twitched. The judge laid it out. Restitution. Probation. No contact. A requirement to remove my name from every business document under supervision. And then, like the final nail, she added, the state contractor board has been notified of the fraud connected to your business registration. Your licensing status will be reviewed. Dad's eyes widened for the first time. That was the thing he actually feared. Not losing me. Losing his status. When the hearing ended, my mother waited in the hallway, face pinched, eyes glossy like she was ready to perform grief. Megan, she started. I didn't stop walking. She followed a few steps, voice rising. After everything, you're just going to leave us like this? I turned just once, not angry, not shaking. Just finished. You left me a long time ago, I said quietly. You just didn't think I noticed. Then I walked away. 3 weeks passed before I saw Logan again. Not in court. Not at the house. At a coffee shop downtown where I'd stopped for lunch. He was sitting alone in the corner, looking thinner, older somehow. When our eyes met, he didn't try to hide or pretend he hadn't seen me. He just lifted his hand slightly, a small wave that looked like surrender. I hesitated, then walked over. Megan, he said quietly. Can I talk to you? Just for a minute. I stayed standing, keeping distance between us. 1 minute. Logan exhaled slowly. I testified against Dad. I told them everything. The signatures, the bank visits, the van lease. All of it. I waited, watching his face carefully. I know it doesn't fix anything, he continued, voice strained. But I'm trying to make it right. I got my own lawyer. I'm paying back what I owe. And I told the prosecutor you had nothing to do with any of it. My chest tightened slightly. Why now? I asked. Logan looked down at his coffee cup, jaw working. Because I watched Dad blame you for everything he did wrong. And I realized I was doing the same thing. Making you small so I could feel bigger. He looked up, eyes wet. I'm sorry, Meg. I really am. I stared at him for a long moment, feeling the weight of years pressing between us. Then I nodded once. Thank you for telling the truth. I turned to leave. Logan's voice caught me. Does this mean we can talk again someday? I paused, not turning back. Someday. Maybe. But not today. And I walked out. 6 months later, I stood in the private dining room at Rowan House, watching Elias unveil the new expansion he'd been planning. The space was beautiful, warm lighting, clean lines, the kind of place where people celebrated things that mattered. Elias raised a glass toward me. None of this happens without Megan Hartley. She made sure we did it right. The small crowd applauded. I felt my face warm, but I didn't look away. I let myself feel proud. After the event, I drove home past my parents' old neighborhood. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I just noticed that the house looked smaller than I remembered. My phone buzzed with a message from Marissa. Restitution payment received. Case closed. I pulled over, hands steady on the wheel, and let myself breathe. It was over. Not perfectly. Not neatly. But completely. My father's business license had been suspended. Logan was rebuilding his life quietly, working construction for someone else. My mother had stopped reaching out. And I had built something they couldn't take from me. Respect. Stability. Peace. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, looking out at the city lights. My phone stayed silent. No guilt. No crisis. No one demanding I shrink myself to make them comfortable. I thought about the girl who sat at that dinner table holding her fork steady while her family mocked her. And I felt something for her I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. Pride. Because she survived. And she didn't just survive. She won.